Welcome. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and today we're looking at the Lisa McVey case. On November 3rd, 1984, in Tampa, Florida, it was in a working class neighborhood. At the time, Lisa McVey was 17 years old. She had just finished up working a double shift at a local donut shop. It was very early in the morning, and she was on her way home. And Lisa wasn't your typical teenager. She had already faced a lifetime of trauma and abuse in her life. She dropped out of high school. She worked hard, and now she is tired, riding on her bike, going home. It's very early in the morning, and something terrible happened to her. Lisa likely had high ACE scores, which is adverse childhood experiences, a rating scale to determine the level of trauma in someone's life. And Lisa dropped out of school. We know that. She probably had a really rough life. She was a loner. She had few friends. And yet, she wasn't your typical teenager. She worked hard. She was working hard that night. And she got on her bike and she was going home around 2 o'clock in the morning. She was grabbed off her bicycle by a man who emerged in the darkness, as if he was watching, or maybe he was patrolling late at night. And he saw Lisa on her bike, and she thought she would be an easy target. He thought wrong. He stopped her on her bike, blindfolded her, forced her into his car, and he drove off. Police confirmed that Lisa was held captive for 26 hours, and she suffered repeated assaults. During the 1980s in Tampa, Florida, people were already on edge because there were reports of missing women, and the police suspected a serial killer was on the loose. At the time when Lisa went missing, it seemed like a random disappearance, or maybe she ran away. Maybe she went to stay the night at a friend's house. There wasn't a lot of suspicion at the time, and the police definitely didn't think a serial killer had abducted her. But that's exactly what happened. But what makes this case remarkable is how Lisa handled herself during her abduction during those 26 hours. Lisa didn't have the resources that many of us had. She didn't have a support system. She didn't have a lot going for her, but something inside her, something happened, which is remarkable for this young teenager. For 26 hours, Lisa was being held captive. She didn't know it at the time, but her captor was the serial killer that everyone else in Tampa was afraid of. And she was with him face to face. His name, Bobby Joe Long. He was the serial killer at the time in Tampa and was responsible for at least 10 other victims. Police have been hunting for the serial killer for months, and the thing that made this case so difficult was the serial killer, Bobby, as we know now, he picked up after himself. He was meticulous. He was clean. He didn't leave evidence behind. He was very methodical. He picked his targets, and he was very careful not to leave evidence. And then comes along Lisa. Bobby thought Lisa was going to be a pretty easy target. She was a teenager. She was on a bike at 2 o'clock in the morning. He probably made some assumptions that her parents didn't really mind that she was out, maybe even absent, and didn't even know where she was. All these things that he's thinking he's out for a ride or he targeted her. We don't know, but he's out at 2 o'clock in the morning, sees her riding. It was dark. She may not have even had a light. And so he comes up alongside her, pulls her over, and blindfolds her and takes her home. And that's where things get interesting. During her captivity, Lisa did something absolutely remarkable. She used her wits to survive, her intellect, something inside her. She was using her intuition and trying to stay alive. Despite being blindfolded and absolutely terrified, can you imagine what that must have felt like? Despite all of that, she paid very careful attention to her surroundings. She counted the steps from the car to the apartment. Smart. She noted the sound of a train nearby. Super smart. She even memorized the texture on a dashboard. All these things, she's using her senses. Now remember, she's blindfolded, so she can only use the senses that she has available. She was quick to think what to do. So she was very, very aware of her surroundings. She was very mindful, even though she was experiencing a horror a nightmare that was going on. This wasn't just quick thinking, it was a strategy and a will to survive. She knew that something horrible was going to happen to her, and yet she held out hope that somehow she would escape or be rescued. And so she kept methodical details and memorized all the different things that made this abduction stand out to her, just in case that she can repeat this and tell the police to capture him. And that's exactly what happened. Here's where the case gets really bizarre and very puzzling. After the 26 hours of her captivity, Long drove her to a remote area and just let her go. He actually told Lisa that he did not want to kill her, which is really puzzling to the investigators. Here is a serial killer, targeted his victim, kept her captive for 26 hours, and just decided, I don't want to kill you. And then he drives her off and lets her go. So why would a serial killer who had brutally murdered other women just release a witness? Because he thought a teenager who was blindfolded wouldn't know. And so he let her go, and that was his fatal mistake. The other details that we know about Lisa during her captivity in her 26 hours, she left behind critical evidence, fingerprints on a glass, a hair on a towel, and her detailed description of the apartment's layout. All these things that she was keeping track of. And he had no idea. And then when she got home, she immediately reported the crime to the police, providing a treasure trove of clues. Here are some lesser known details about this case. This is really interesting. It just really magnifies just how observant Lisa was. Lisa had written on a piece of paper the license plate number of Long's car, and she hid it under her bed, leaving evidence. What little she could see, she did remember seeing the color of the carpet, and she gave those details to the police, and it matched the description from another witness from a different case. All of these clues that Lisa gave to the police led them to Long just days after her release. When they arrested Long, they found a ledger with all of the victims' names on the list, but Lisa's name wasn't even on it. It was almost as if he kept a record of who he was going to capture and end their life, and yet Lisa wasn't a part of his plan, and maybe it was just a random pickup. Maybe he thought it would be an easy way to, I don't know, maybe for sport. Who knows what was going on inside his mind? Whatever the case, he picked the wrong victim. What makes his case so interesting is how Lisa, a teenager, flipped the script on Long. Long was a serial killer. He wanted to kill people, but for some reason, he didn't want to kill Lisa. And she capitalized on that. And she picked up on all the different details, what she heard, the little that she could see, texture, what she could feel. She counted the number of steps. She knew the layout of the apartment. All those details were critical. And she was keeping all of those in her mind, probably repeating them over and over and over again so she wouldn't forget. And here's the other thing with Lisa. She really started to build a rapport with Long, as if it was an uncle or a friend. That was a part of her plan as well, to develop a personal connection with Long. She later told police she sensed that he wanted to feel powerful, so she played into that, asking questions to humanize herself in his eyes, making him the center of attention. It's a psychological chess game here that likely saved her life. She picked up on what he desired. She was very aware of her surroundings, and all of these things added up to help police capture Long. Now I want to unpack some of the mental health indicators here, and I want to be very clear. These are my speculations. It's not a diagnosis of anyone. Lisa McVey's survival is a case study in resilience and situational awareness. She had a will to live, and she was very aware of her surroundings. Growing up in an abusive environment likely helped her here. It's what we call hypervigilance. It's a heightened awareness, a heightened state of survival, being very careful of what you say and being very observant of your surroundings. Hypervigilance is a trait that we often see in survivors. but can be debilitating in day-to-day life. But here, it was a superpower. She needed to be hypervigilant to survive. A 1988 study by the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit notes that victims who engage captors emotionally can sometimes disrupt their dehumanization process, which seemed to fit Lisa's approach here. Now let's look at Bobby Joe Long. He definitely exhibited the traits of a psychopath. The ledger that he kept of his victims, that points to a compulsive need to be dominant over someone else. A lack of remorse and empathy. He didn't care. He just wanted to fulfill his needs and desires. But why let Lisa go? One possibility is that Lisa's ability to reach him at a personal level, which made him feel like maybe she was a daughter or could have been his niece. We don't know. By treating him as a person, not a monster, she may have triggered a momentary conflict of his psyche. He was confused. Maybe in that moment, he realized he didn't want to kill anymore. This aligns with research on serial killers who occasionally spare victims when their ego is stroked, as seen in cases like Ted Bundy. We all know about him. I talked about him before. Lisa's targeting may also reflect Long's psychology. He preyed on vulnerable women, but Lisa's youth and resilience didn't fit his usual victim profile, which might have thrown him off. I think that's pretty likely here. He probably thought Lisa was an easy target, and he realized that she wasn't playing a victim. Lisa's ability to stay calm, even though she was blindfolded, even though she knew that she was stepping into danger, that may have thrown him off. She didn't fight him. She didn't resist. She didn't break down in tears. All things that Long really wanted in his victims. She didn't play the victim. Wow. If you know this case, you know that Lisa went on to be a police officer herself. This case is a stark reminder that we have to pay attention to our surroundings. So what do you think about this case? What were some interesting details? Maybe you have some other details that you know about this case. So many of you know these cases really well. And I'm always looking for other cases that have psychological twists and angles and mental health indicators. So if you have one in mind, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, stay curious, stay safe.